All right, we are live. Okay, we almost missed the opening bell there. Good afternoon, morning, evening, one and all. Welcome to another Sunday cinema watch party. I am joined by the John Larroquette voiceover Pazuzu.
Here for
Welcome,
my
James.
here for my 20 seconds of glory at the start.
We were just talking about that before we started. Okay, so before we jump into this, the sync point is right at the beginning as a Vortex Hinkle Hooper production logo is on screen. There is a logo before that, so depending on what version you have, it's all going to be different. So,
Well, not on my Blu-ray. It goes straight into Vortex Henkel Hooper.
okay, mine has a logo before that. I am watching the 50th anniversary edition. I ended up renting it because the visual, the graphics are just a little bit cleaned up. Um, so you might all have a different logo at your beginning. So
I'm
if
watching
everybody,
the Blu-ray from the big chunky second sight 4K box set.
nice second sight, check it out, guys. It's a UK what distribution. Um,
One of our boutique labels does quite a lot of horror titles, from Hammer stuff up to things from near present day. Quite a lot of them are UK only releases because someone like Criterion might have the license in the States.
there you go. All right. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. We're going to be counting down from five, four, three, two, one. Press play. And we've got a lot to talk about in the slasher genre as it relates to this movie. Oh, here you go. Here is your moment to shine, James. We were just talking about this. Yes, that voice is John Larroquette.
It's his
Um,
first role.
his first role, he got to know Toby Hooper when he was a bartender, and Toby Hooper was out in Colorado one day, and
He was shooting his student film Eggshells in 1969 when he met him.
we were just talking about this. How did John Larroquette get paid, James?
He got paid in weed.
For I think an hour's job. So there you go. So you're not mistaken. That really is John Larroquette's voice. Um, okay, so this is middle of summer down the road in Texas. Super, super hot in the van through the whole time that they were shooting. I think it was what, 32 days, 32 or 33 days. Everything was just hot. Um, and it really does show, especially with one of the first scenes when we see the kids in the van, those wacky kids. We have Sally, Franklin, Jerry, Pam, and Kirk on a fun little road trip. And comedy ensues, I guess.
Think National Lampoon's Vacation.
But with,
Hilarious consequences.
okay, yes, there you go. Um, so yes, we have a lot to talk about. When the slasher movie genre is brought up, this movie is the epitome. It is not the first slasher movie, but it is one that a lot of uh, the conversation will go back to. It is groundbreaking in a lot of respects. Low budget, I mean, down and dirty, gritty, flying by the seat of their pants production. which ended up making a fortune and is now revered in a lot of the top 10 lists, top 100 lists as what? Most consequential movies, most impactful movies of cinema. And so there's lots of reasons why. So before we kind of get into all of that, let's do a shout out. Let's see who's joining us today. Over in YouTube, we've got Hella If I Know, Alex Peacock, Eric Calbot, Edward the Black Prince, Johnny Devick. Let's see, Hella If I Know, Miss Swift, Alex Peacock. Oh, Miss Swift, yes. She's Miss Swift is watching the 50th anniversary on streaming, and it started right out of Vortex. I had, yeah, I'm renting it on Amazon, so I had something else before that. So um, let's see, over in Discord. Let's get back to the chat. Who is in Discord? We have Calbot, Miss Swift. I think Miss Swift is over there.
Someone called Sharon 2230 in there, I can see.
Do what? You were kind of garbled there.
There's someone called Sharon 2230 in there as well.
Huh. I wonder if that is me as well. Huh. Yes, it is. That's me. Let's see. Alex, Mr. Furzel. Oh, let's see. Eric, Alex Calbot. Oh, Miss Swift was last week in Discord. Okay. We are all talking about barbecue, and I am getting hungry for barbecue. Okay. So, for any of you have not seen it. Has anybody seen this so many times that they can recite it by heart?
Has
Or
anyone accidentally put on the Michael Bay version?
Michael Bay version? Which one is that?
Well, he didn't. His company produced a remake many years ago, and people asked him why he was remaking it, and he basically said, "Have you seen the original film? It just doesn't work anymore."
Mm, well, um,
This was 2003, so his remake is now 22 years old.
well, a lot has changed. Obviously, a lot has changed in the industry. A lot has changed in filmmaking from when this was made in '73. This was made in the summer of '73 till 2003. Um, so this movie started off with that really gruesome cemetery scene with the desecrated bodies. This movie, I think, was inspired by the case of Ed Gein. If anybody is familiar with
Ed
him,
Gein kind
Ed
of
Gein.
inspires lots and lots of American horror movies.
Mhm.
So
He
you've got
inspired a lot of horror.
films from the same period like Deranged. Psycho is also partly inspired by Ed Gein.
Yeah, he was a pretty bizarre serial killer in his own right. By all accounts, though, he only killed two people, but he has admittedly desecrated many, many grave sites and stolen body parts. And so this movie is kind of taking parts of real life and making a horror movie out of it, as if the truth is not horrific enough. Um, but yeah, so now we're introduced to these plucky little teenagers on a road trip, um, and nothing good can come from this. And let's see what the chat is saying. Miss Swift says, I know I've seen the start and the end, but I don't know if I've seen it all the way through. Let's see, Edward the Black Prince. 2003 is one of the few good horror remakes that's good. Edward the Black Prince, goddamn hippies trying to sound smart.
I suppose it's got Arlie Ermy in as a sheriff, so it can't be all bad.
It can't be all bad.
I mean,
Um,
it's always
yeah,
worth asking, I think, when people first saw this, because I know here in the UK, this was very, very, very difficult to see for a long while.
it
Because
was actually
effectively,
banned.
it
Hmm.
was banned from about 1975 onwards because the
Hmm.
BBFC thought it was too horrific and disturbing. The British Board of Film Classification
Hmm.
thought it was too disturbing to give a release certificate to. And then in the
Yep.
1980s, when the home video market started, it was on the famous list of video nasties when the government started banning horror titles. And I think I probably first saw it around 1997 when I was at university, because then individual cinemas could get a license, a bit like they could with The Exorcist, that was also banned at that point. But you could get a license for a limited showing from your local council. And one of our university film societies obligingly showed us all these films.
It was banned in the UK for upwards of 25 years.
Mm,
And I guess once the head of that board that you were talking about that governs that,
yeah,
once he left,
I think
it
that would
opened it
be
up.
it would be a chap called James Furman. And when I say banned, as I said, they could still be shown in a cinema, but the cinema had to license it directly from their local council. Whereas if it had got a certificate, any cinema anywhere could show it.
Gotcha. Okay, so hell if I know, this is a really good point. Is it ever established why Franklin is in the chair in the first place? Like what kind of injury? It is never stated, and I think it was part of his character, which makes okay. So his character was supposed to be very frustrated, to be in a wheelchair. That's why he is really annoying and whiny. His character is supposed to be annoying and whiny. But there is no that I could see in research why he was in the chair in the first place.
I mean, I would have thought that he's probably had some sort of accident because he's really frustrated by being
Mhm.
disabled in a way that you possibly wouldn't be if that's all you've ever known and experienced.
I That is a good point. And he lashes out at those who can get around. So it does lend us to think he was injured and was able to walk at one point, but now can't. Okay, guys. Moral of the story: do not ever pick up a hitchhiker, ever.
Unless he looks like Rutger Hauer, then it's bound to be good.
Then, as long as they're attractive, right? Then they're not going to turn out to be serial killers, right? Um, and
I
so
probably wouldn't have picked up the blood-stained hitchhiker
no.
myself.
And so this movie and The Hitcher have one thing in common, I believe. They picked the hitchhiker up in the daytime. If I'm not mistaken, Rutger Hauer was picked up in the daytime, right? Or was it at night when you're more susceptible to pick up serial killers as hitchhikers?
I think he
Uh,
picked him up in the day.
you can pick them up anywhere. But so supposedly, so this is one thing I'm not really going to believe in this story. So Sally and Franklin supposedly grew up in this area. So they're going to their old house. So it's Franklin that has the accent. Sally does not necessarily have an accent. Is is that supposed to make me believe that they're brother and sister, or am I likely to think that one is talking with an accent and one is not? Does that make any sense? And does anybody feel the same way? Shouldn't they? Both have an accent?
Well, it would depend when they what age they both were when they moved away.
When they
Franklin
moved away, right.
might might have been there long enough as a child to have the local accent, whereas she might
Yeah.
have been a babe in arms and so picks up the accent wherever they move to.
Yeah, and I don't think that is ever fully explained in the movie. Um, so yes, Mr. Furzel, that is a very good point
It's not a
about
movie that's big on explanations. It's
no.
or traditional plotting or anything like that. It's more horrible things just happen and take you by surprise.
Yeah, so for some whatever reason, this guy is cutting his hand open. Okay, great, great. Okay, this is a sign of things to come. Just so you know. Yes, Mr. Furzel. I hate to ask what the purse around his neck is made of. I have the exact same feeling every time I see that. Um, so anybody who knows the lore in this movie would suspect, but of course these kids in the van, they don't know anything. And so what? They think they're just picking up a hitchhiker because that's what you did in the 60s and 70s.
Well, before people knew about things like serial killers.
Like in strangers danger.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be giving a lift to someone who keeps a cutthroat razor in his shoe.
Yeah. You think something is just off with the guy.
I think the blood on his face, the cutthroat razor on his shoe, the self-harming, none of it's really indicating he's someone I'd want to hang around with.
Not entirely stable. So when we're talking like low budget, this van, if I remember correctly, actually belonged to the sound guy, and he got a van, and they were looking for a van, and so he lent them his van. Um, Everybody got paid what they could, and some of these actors, I think, in the end of the movie, almost didn't get paid. Um, a lot of these props were actual animal bones that someone got from a vet office. Um, Absolutely shoestring budget. By all accounts, it was anywhere from what 70 to 140,000. One of okay, Franklin's. I think Franklin's real name is Paul. Um, he, in an interview, had said the last scene that he ever shot was the first scene that what they showed when he was in the chair and toppled over. He was trying to go to the bathroom. That was the last scene they shot. The only way that he would come back to do it is if he got his money because they hadn't paid him and they said we don't have money to pay you. So when that scene was shot and he was in the wheelchair and falling down that hill, he actually had the check in his pocket that they paid him in full.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, there's a lot to be said for low budget, makes you think outside the box and makes you get very creative in your filmmaking. But there comes a point where you kind of want to pay your actors and you want to pay the crew. Um, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's lots of stories. Um, Here's another one. Oh, go ahead.
But it's also one of these things that with horror is something where specifically people know that they can make something relatively low budget, but it has the potential to tap into quite a big market. So I don't actually think Toby Hooper ever really wanted to be a horror director and be pigeonholed as such per se. I think yeah, because his first film, his student film, Eggshell, was his hippy dippy stuff. I think he did it a bit like Wes Craven did with Last House on the Left, uh,
Mhm.
because he thought that was a way that he could actually get something made, not much money that he's raised himself, and get it released and maybe get an audience. And it just blew up so big that he then
Mhm.
got trapped in the genre almost.
Yeah. Very true. As a struggling filmmaker, you have those opportunities to make films, and you make them because you're a filmmaker. Until you get to the position where you get to choose your projects, choose your cast, choose the people around you. Um,
Which is why when we did Invaders on Mars quite a while back now,
yeah.
that when he was actually getting to pick projects himself, I found it interesting that the two he picked were both sci-fi ones, harking back to the films he'd watched in the 50s growing up. And I always thought that they seemed a lot more sincere and probably spoke a lot more about him than the horror projects in the interim. That
Yeah. Good point.
basically you've done a big horror film, we now want you to do more horror films. That doesn't mean
And
that's what he wanted to do.
right, but you make a profit and you get to, notches
Well,
on the
obviously
rung of
the problem is
success.
he didn't make a profit on this film. The dodgy
Mm,
financiers,
yep.
the dodgy
Miss
mob
Swift.
financiers made the profit on the film.
Yeah, and so Alex Peacock had mentioned, note to self: if I'm working on a movie and they can't pay me, get a renegotiated back end deal. They tried. Vortex in the logo. Vortex was like the parent company who owned the rights, but it turns out Vortex didn't. Nobody knew it at the time. When they tried to renegotiate later on, it turns out through these backdoor channels and deals that it ended up being a mafia run business that owned the rights. Everybody got screwed. Nobody went up against the mafia. I think later on, a couple of the production crew went up and tried to negotiate, and maybe got a little bit, but this was the dangers of this hazy, unknown legal drama that can occur when things aren't, I guess, known at the time, or you fall into the trap of just
It's
being a peon and not having any power.
it's also why all the sequels are very tonally and
Mm,
creatively incredibly inconsistent with one another, because it all depended on who managed to option the rights from the trustees of this mob controlled movie company to be able to make sequels. And obviously, they weren't interested in product, they were just interested in what money they could get. So, obviously, you have when Toby did his sequel for Canon, he did something absolutely crazy. You then get the studio tries to do Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 and then edits the violence out, and that doesn't really work very well. And then you get the writer, Kim Henkel, comes back and he does, what is it, Texas Chainsaw Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? I think it
mm,
is.
I think he was in what is the third or the fourth. Return was the fourth.
Yeah, Returns of Fourth. That's the one Kim
Yeah.
Henkel did that
Uh-huh.
has Renée Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey in being young,
Being young and in Hollywood, you take what roles are given you.
especially when you're starting out.
Um, yeah, exactly. So there was no expectation. when this movie was being made that it would ever make a profit or go anywhere, but
Obviously, just
it
here we
did.
have some lovely 1973 period detail. The petrol station with no petrol. Because America is in one of its 1970s energy crisis.
Oh, Johnny Devick, lots of good insight here today, Sharon and Paz. Pazuzu, yeah. There is a lot involved with this movie and the slasher genre as a whole. This was not the first quote unquote slasher movie. That was attributed to 1960s Peeping Tom,
Yeah.
um, which,
Although I could be picky and I would probably say that it was Universal's The Mummy. Because
okay,
if you look at any mummy film, they follow the pattern of someone does something that wakes up a mummy, and the mummy then stalks and kills everyone in the exposition one by one.
yes,
That's pretty stalk and slash, I think.
that that is a very good point. So you could attribute the beginning to any number of
But but I agree.
movies
Peeping Tom is usually what people
considered.
say, especially as that has the killer using the camera. So
Yeah.
you're very much getting all the murders from his point of view.
Okay. And so Calbot points out, I argue the first slasher was actually Halloween 1978, and all these others are proto slashers. So yes, there is something to be said in the what in the cinema in the cinema universe. Peeping Tom is generally considered. It almost ended the director's career because it was so controversial.
Mm.
Um, and it was at the time it was kind of what this movie was in its time.
Well, it's in
But
particular, Peeping Tom was from one of the director team, Powell and Pressburger, Michael Powell, I think, who they were two of the most beloved auteurs in British cinema, done classics like Black Narcissus, A Night to Remember, and then basically one of them does his own film. It's a slasher movie or a proto slasher movie, and it completely destroys his career.
yep, um, it just you know what, it has to do with a lot of the sensibilities at the time that a movie is released. Um, this, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, when we revisit it 50 years later, 51 years later, this doesn't have the punch that we have grown up on. The slasher that we're thinking of, like from the 80s, where it's just blood everywhere and just, slashing and all these
I think
people getting
one of the
killed and the
reasons
gore.
there's no blood everywhere is
Exactly.
Toby Hooper was actually trying to produce a PG film. All the
He
way
was,
through
and it wasn't
production,
given to him.
he was ringing up the MPAA saying, how can I show someone being put on a meat hook to die and still get a PG certificate? And they'd say, well, you can't show the meat hook going in, or you can't show the blood, you can't show them feeling pain. And you go,
Yep.
okay, I'll shoot it that way. And then they'd still say at the end, no, you've made a movie about a serial killer with a chainsaw. You are not having a PG rating.
Exactly. This is, yes, Edward the Black Prince. It is really tame by today's standards. It is. We don't really see anything.
I don't
But
necessarily agree that it's tame because I think with a lot of it, you come away thinking you've
thinking
seen things that you haven't.
exactly, exactly. That's why.
It's only when you watch it again and again that you suddenly realise hang on, it's all implied.
And you are knee deep in a psychological terror slash drama slash horror before you even realize there's really nothing explicit going on. This is all very subdued, and you have the images and the sounds of terror without seeing the gore. And this movie is still misunderstood in a lot of circles and to a lot of people who think it is just a massive bloodbath. Um, but it's so brilliantly done. Like you said, he tried to get a PG rating, but no matter what he did, no matter what was cut, it was never going to get a PG rating based on
It
either
being
the
about
name,
someone with a chainsaw killing people.
you know, yeah, you don't see a chainsaw going into someone. That's what you get in today's market. You get the CGI, you get everything,
Well, there was that
and you still
Netflix
get an
one.
R.
There was a sequel on Netflix year or two back, where about these people go and trying to be a direct sequel. They try and come and gentrify this village, and Leatherface is there and goes to do a lot of chainsawing of gentrifying yuppie types. And boy, do you see a lot of chainsawing.
I must have missed that one. Um, yeah, so there seems to be, um, yeah, there's a lot of discussion about in the chat about it being tame. Hell if I know even says I wouldn't say it is tame. There are a lot of unsettling scenes that get under your skin and stays with you. Absolutely. That's what makes this such a brilliant psychological uh, terror. It's because a lot of it is in your mind. You know it's there. You know what is going on without seeing it. It can be very unsettling. And I find, yes, Franklin is very unsettling when he gets whiny and crying and throwing fits. Okay, that's a little bit over the top. Um, and fun fact, he actually stayed in character the whole shoot and actually annoyed everybody because he was afraid that if he got out of character, he wouldn't be able to find him again. So he just stayed that way. Um, okay, so this is our first what? Teens, being reckless. They're going off to what they think is a swimming pool somewhere. And this would be Pam and is this Jerry or Kirk? Does anybody know?
You're asking me to tell which of these young people is which.
Which is which? It's Kirk. Thank you, hell if I know. So Pam and Kirk, lo and behold, they find a house. Let's go investigate. Oh, thank you. Jerry drives the van. Thank you, hell if I know. Yes, Calbot, method actors, scarier than anything in the movie. Yep. So these kids, um, yeah, actually, Kirk, Pam, not so much, but yeah, Kirk just kind of makes himself at home almost.
I'm kind of getting big stay back, stay away vibes from this place. With
Yeah,
it
who would
kind
investigate?
with it being like overgrown, run down, and with really sinister things hanging from the trees and stuff like and everything. It just doesn't say visitors welcome to me.
And I don't even think they would have to have a sign that says keep out, no trespassing, because it is creepy enough. There's a generator going, so you know the people can't be too far, but there comes a point.
Because obviously, if you're a hick in the backwoods, you need lots and lots and lots of cars.
This is, I guess, this is just how. Yeah, this is how you would live out in
I,
a rural environment.
I would say
Um,
the suggestion is more to me that those are the cars of other poor unfortunates who've come this way and not gone any further.
but that generator looks pretty new. So maybe that's why they get the bright idea that, yeah, we'll just walk on the property, trying to find someone. Alex, and really who would just wander up to a random house in the middle of nowhere? Yeah, it happens. Johnny Devick, doesn't Amazon have an actor UI, like user interface? Yeah, I can click on it and get the little sidebar of trivia facts. It's just
Oh yeah,
annoying when I do that.
yeah, that's their X-ray
Hmm.
feature that will let you drill down into actors, and it's also got a trivia option where it will give you pop-up nuggets of
Hmm.
dubious information about the various scenes.
Exactly. Okay, you see a tooth on the ground and it's like, ah, no big deal. So there's one thing about the method acting that, method acting, a lot of actors do it. They get into character and they stay that way. Johnny Devick mentions Raging Bull method acting would be useful here. Um,
Well, I think my favourite example of the method acting came from Dustin Hoffman in the film Marathon Man, where before each scene he'd
mm.
actually go and try and run as far as he could, so he'd turn up sweaty and out of breath and looking exhausted. And Laurence Olivier, his co-star, said to him, "My dear boy, why don't you just act?"
There's that whole school of thought, method acting versus in the moment acting. Um, so, one of the things I appreciate about this movie is the makeup gal, Dorothy. Her name, her last name escapes me, but she was like part of the makeup crew, and she also took part. Okay, this is our first kill and our first introduction to Leatherface, who was just minding his own business, and Kirk happens to trespass.
And this is one of these things where there's like no build up, no hint it's going to happen.
Nothing.
It's then done, gone.
Yep, yep. Um,
So, because normally in a horror film, before or after you get a hint something's going to happen, you'll maybe have someone have the fake jump scare with a cat in a dumpster or something.
exactly.
The music will be cueing you in that something bad
Exactly.
is
You'll
going to
get the
happen.
music intro. Yep.
Here, oh, apart from, well, we know something bad is going to happen to her now. We had no idea something like that was going to happen to him then.
No, but what do you expect when you go into someone's house? So there is a case for self defense. Okay, very thin, but there could be, and she needs to just stay out of the house too. I'm just saying.
You're going to tell me that Leatherface is going to roll out some sort of stand your ground defence law?
I'm just saying.
I saw the hippie came at me with the tooth he'd found on the floor, so I
Exactly.
killed him with the meat cleaver.
Exactly. I'm 280 pounds. He's 120 soaking wet. I have a hammer. He had nothing. It was self defense. So anyway, what I was saying about so Dorothy was part of the makeup and she was part of like the set decoration. She's the one that added a lot of the realism to this with the animal parts. Um, so you can have your opinion on that, but the animal parts that were used for this movie, the animals did come from a vet or an animal shelter, they were already dead when
And
their parts
over
were,
several hot days, they also became putrefying.
and they started to smell. Yes. So, like, no animals were harmed in the making of this movie, but real animal parts were used for the realism. Um, and taking from the story of Ed Gein, or Gain, however you pronounce it, Ed Gein stole body parts from a cemetery, and he also killed two people that we know of, and kind of did things to him, hung one of the victims upside down, displayed the body parts in honor of his mother he was obsessed with. I mean, this guy's a study. He's a study in these serial killers, if you want to study one. Um, so he did kind of display the body parts. And so I think this is kind of mirroring that. Geen. Okay, thank you, Calbot. It's spelled Gine, but pronounced Geen. Thank you very much. Yeah, okay, so Edward the Black Prince pointing out that was common 70s film using real animals before laws were put into effect. Yeah, so I would have more of an issue. Okay, bye, Pam. Yeah, she's going to get it. So I have more of an issue when you harm animals to make the movie. It's another when it had nothing to do with the movie and
I mean,
you're
in,
using them.
in the UK, we can't show films that have animals actually being harmed in them. If it was like something from a nature documentary that they splice into the film, that would be fine. But you can't release show in the cinema or release on home video or even put on the streaming services stuff that's got an animal actually being harmed for the
Exactly.
purpose of the film. So, as an
Exactly.
example, we James Cameron's The Abyss will never get a home release in the UK unedited because it's got the sequence in where the rat goes in the liquid it can breathe, and the rat is obviously distressed. So, because that means they'd have to edit it, James Cameron said no, so it can't be released on a home format here. Disney Plus stuck it out, and the BBFC has intervened and made them take it off the UK streaming platform because it contains rat distress.
But the rat wasn't harmed.
The rat is
Well,
clearly distressed. The rat
yeah.
is not having a good time being put in
Okay.
that fluid. So you can so you
Well,
can get
I
things
get
like
it.
in the
I
Sean
get it.
Connery Bond film, Never Say Never Again. There's a sequence in Africa at the end where he and Kim Basinger jump a horse off a cliff into the sea. And in the American version, you actually see the horse hit the water and get hurt. In the
Oh,
UK version, because it was actually they chucked a horse off a cliff, it cuts the impact so you don't see the scene where the horse gets hurt.
oh, yeah. I'd be in favor of that. I don't want to see a horse get hurt. Yeah.
So
So
we so
there's
we've got
different
all
laws.
sorts of stuff like might be some westerns with horse falls where a horse was actually injured. Might be some old film that's got a cockfight or something in, or even an episode of Miami Vice with a cockfight in. That'll all be edited out because we can't watch real animals be made to suffer for our entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. So there's laws put in place. So it's just a matter of what the audience you feel comfortable watching. Um, yeah.
And I
So
mean, and I mean,
so
in this case, if they've just got a load of dead creatures from a slaughterhouse or a vet that
mhm.
were going to be killed anyway, then I don't have a problem with it. But if they'd gone out and I don't know, gun down some stray dogs or something for the purposes
Yeah.
of the film.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. Okay, so far we have said goodbye. I'm going to cross off these names as they meet their end. All right, goodbye, Pam. Goodbye, Kirk. Um, that yes, that we know of. Pam, no. Who had mentioned Pam didn't leave the house yet? Yeah,
Oh, and
Alex. How had she not left the house?
incidentally, Pam
Yeah.
and Kirk, before they went to the house, they went down to that swimming hole, and Kirk asked how Franklin used to get there on his own. And yeah, because it's Franklin who told them about it, which would seem to back
Oh,
up my theory that Franklin wasn't always
oh,
disabled.
I missed that
That
line.
at least when he was a kid, he could get down to this swimming hole.
And so it does make you wonder, since the house that their dad's house was in such disarray, it makes me wonder how long they have been gone, because they're obviously what, early 20s. Um, Maybe they've been gone 10 years, and that house looks like it's in more of like a 20 to 30 year disarray and abandonment, but who knows? They probably didn't pay that much attention to that in the story. And then here we have Jerry. All right, Jerry. Let's see what adventures Jerry can come up with.
Maybe my
Oh,
friends have gone in that sinister house. I'll look there.
I'll look there. Oh, yes, Miss Swift. There's also Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I'll leave it there. And Johnny Devick says Butch ending is pretty hardcore. Hell if I know agrees. It has been probably 25 years since I've seen Butch Cassidy.
Hmm.
Um, I need to revisit that.
I think The Sting is a better movie for your Paul Newman and Robert Redford fix.
Yep, The Sting was, why am I saying 1964? Wait, The
No, no, the
Sting,
Sting. The Sting is afterwards. Butch
73.
and Sundance is a '69 film.
Yep, The Sting would have had to have been, that was the first
This
movie I ever remember seeing. I was in a drive-through, in a drive-in,
1973.
1973. So I must have been 5. Yeah. Yes, I agree. Edward the Black Prince, The Sting is great. I revisit that movie every once in a while, and it is just it's captivating. So far, we have had a lot of hammer attacks, very little chainsaw work. Nothing is brutal, nothing is in your face imagery. It's
It's not
all
like Texas Chainsaw
implied.
Massacre 2, where you have people dueling with chainsaws.
Exactly. Dueling chainsaws.
Look, if Dennis Hopper turned up now as a rogue Texas Ranger, it could
Yep.
only improve matters.
That would have been classic had he like a small cameo in this. Then he shows up in the second one as like a full fledged character. This imagery with the face, knowing if this is your first time watching the movie, not knowing anything about Leatherface, that is disturbing because it your mind will wander, what the heck does he have on his face? Then you take what other imagery you've seen, you kind of start putting two and two together that, oh, that is not a usual mask.
Well, I think it's also part of the method acting thing is they didn't let they kind of kept the other cast members away from him and didn't let them see the
Mm,
mask until, well, their characters encountered the mask.
yep, exactly. And there was, off the top of my head, there were several movies that did that as well. Um, oh, geez. I know they do that a lot when you have children in the movies, that you keep them away from the bad guys, the you know, the scary mask, the costumes. You keep the children away.
Yeah.
But what is the movie I'm thinking of? That the cast just kind of everybody kept their distance because it made the on-screen visuals that much more effective. Okay, it'll come to me probably at 3 o'clock in the morning. Um, okay, Mr. Furzel over in Discord. Thank you for that meme. Jerry looks like Letterman. I can't unsee it. You know what? In a really funny way, he does. He looks like David Letterman. So it was. Was it ever? Um, so was it ever explained where these kids originated from? They went to the cemetery based on the first the news report that we heard at the beginning of the movie about the desecration at the cemetery.
Yeah.
So Sally and Franklin bring their friends on this road trip because their grandfather's buried there. That much we know. But it
Yeah.
never did say where they started from, whether this was like a 3 day journey or where they came from.
Hmm.
Or did they and I just didn't catch it?
No. I know where they've gone. I don't know where they've come from.
Where they, yeah. So I'm thinking it was, they couldn't have gone too far because it doesn't look like they brought belongings enough to stay overnight, a day or two. Oh, Miss Swift, a 3 hour tour. Okay. Now I have that song in my head again.
Well, my AI overview indicates that they are students, but it doesn't identify what university or college they're from, but they're on a road trip. So from somewhere to the back end of Texas.
The back end of Texas. There you go. Um, yes. Okay. So Miss Swift, that reference. We also had that reference in last week's movie, The Blair Witch, when he started singing the theme song. So there's a connection. Um, okay. So speaking of this, the slasher genre in general, this movie has spurred on what, countless remakes, sequels. I think there was even a prequel made, the beginning. I think Leatherface,
The, pr-
the
the
beginning.
I I think the prequel is a prequel to the Michael Bay remake.
Gotcha.
So
So we
you've
have,
got Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. That's the one Toby Hooper's back, and this time we have Dennis Hopper as a Texas Ranger.
yep.
Then we have Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. That's the Jeff Burr studio one. Then Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's Kim Henkel, the writer of the original, directing McConaughey and Zellweger. Then we're into the remake universe with
Okay.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre and its prequel, Texas Chainsaw Massacre The Beginning.
The beginning. I
Then,
think that was supposed to be the prequel. Yeah.
then we have Texas Chainsaw 3D. which is a direct sequel to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre and ignores the other five films completely. Then we have Leatherface, which is a prequel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D. This is all very complicated. And then we have 2022's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is a direct sequel to the first film and ignores the other eight films.
Um, I would agree. Yes, Edward the Black Prince, the franchise really went downhill. As
It,
soon
it
as this movie became this phenomenon, everybody wanted to imitate it, be like it, make it, piggyback off it, make the money, use the images, use the name, use the characters, use whatever they could to gobble up as much money as they could.
I mean,
And
as the timeline goes, it's about as confusing as the Halloween multiverse.
you know what? I was just going to say that Halloween kind of did the same thing. I appreciate the Halloween slasher trilogy that was just released. I appreciate it in what it was. And I don't say that often for franchise movies. I think
But
this franchise needed to
you,
stop.
I think Halloween
And
H2O was the first sequel I can remember where they basically said we're ignoring all of the other previous sequels and doing it as a direct sequel
well, to
to
the
the
third.
first film,
Exactly. I
which which,
appreciated that movie.
but
Um,
I always think that's like incredibly disrespectful to the other films and to anyone who liked them. Because,
yeah,
Halloween 2, Halloween 4 have some good stuff in them. 5 and 6, much less so.
yeah.
But then it becomes quite a mainstream thing because you ended up with, what is it, Bryan Singer's Superman Returns, which was a sequel to the unreleased Richard Donner cut of Superman 2 and left out
Oh,
Superman
yeah.
3 and 4.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
it just
Superman, we can talk about that as well. Um, with regards to this franchise, I refuse, I shouldn't say refuse. I have not, on purpose, I have not watched anything past this movie. Um,
the
for a
second.
reason. I
I like the second one.
I am just um
Reasons
I
to watch the second one: A,
yeah.
it's a canon film. B, Dennis Hopper.
So maybe okay, so the sequel, yeah, and Mr. Furzel even said the sequels learned more into the absurdity and comedy though, which is part of what led them off the rails.
Yeah,
So
and
yes,
he's put up the
so
picture of the great advertising poster they did that
exactly.
was spoofing the Breakfast Club.
Exactly. So, okay, this the sequel, okay, I get it. I get sequels, I get trilogies. But at a certain point, I don't go down the road. I don't watch them for a very specific reason that it took such a great idea, it took great filmmakers and then just kind of trashed trashed it, making it go on longer than it should. So you can say that basically about any of the slasher horror genres. They have the high points, they have the low points. Some of them get redeemed along the way. Um, Friday the 13th, they got redeemed along the way by doing some pretty original stuff. Halloween was redeemed, in my mind anyway, by doing some original ideas and taking it kind of to the next level. But then you go down that road long enough and it just ruins it. So all of these Texas Chainsaw Massacres 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't even know what they're
It,
up
it,
to.
I
Um,
would say the interesting ones, if people do want to look at the sequels,
yeah,
the second one, because it's Toby Hooper, and Canon basically gave him a lot of creative freedom. So rather than just recreate the first film, which should be the obvious thing to do, he goes off and does something
yeah,
really batshit crazy, unexpected, and fun.
yeah,
I think the Kim Henkel one, uh, what is it, Texas Chainsaw: The Next Generation, aka Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that is kind of more an attempt to get it back to the spirit of the original film after the two sequels in between had gone off another way. And so I think that's interesting too. After that, it's kind of, I don't know what I'm watching, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Beginning at least have R. Lee Ermey in his best drill sergeant form as the sheriff, and I'll
yeah,
watch that for him.
yeah. So I will. I think I will watch. I'll watch part two. I'll give it a shot. A lot
I
of
th- I think
good things have been said about it.
Part Two's a 1980s horror film. It's a canon film. It was In Search of Darkness. I think it's something we should cover.
You know what? I think I'm going to add it to the list of potential watch party movies. I think we could do that. Um,
I
so
think
okay,
I think
so
I think I think it's sufficiently crazy that it could be a real fun one to do.
I think you know what, based on and even what you guys are saying, I think we could visit that and and talk about that and still talk about it as its own movie and part of the franchise.
Yeah,
So one thing I wanted to point out about this scene, so she came back to this store and this shopkeeper who she thinks is going to keep her safe. Um, if anybody doesn't know, the fun thing about filming this scene is that it took them take after take after take when he starts beating her over the head with the broom. And he was really bruising her and he was trying to hold back and it looked fake. And I think it was either Toby that said, look, you have to go for it because it looks fake if you don't. And she was even, you got to hit me, you got to hit me. And so he did. He was really smacking her around. And it adds to the realism of this scene, but it ended up bruising her a little bit. But it doesn't sound like from the interview she's given that she regrets it. And so, yeah, so we're thinking, who is this guy? He's got to be part of that whacked out family.
uh, yeah. Edward the Black Prince says they've got a business arrangement with Farmer Vincent of Motel Hell.
Motel Hell. Oh, yes, that's another low budget movie. That's from, oh, I want to say late 70s.
1980,
Okay, Motel Hell,
and that's
1980.
directed by Kevin Connor, who became famous in the 60s and 70s directing Amicus movies. So he did the Doug McClure fantasy movie about the lost world, the land that time forgot, and one of the Amicus portmanteau horrors. And then, of course, a story about someone who farms John Ratzenberger for food.
This movie is just rolling along, and it's a pretty short one. Comes in just under an hour and a half.
It's also
Uh,
when you consider that very little, apart from the creepy hitchhiker, happens in the first half hour. It's just that's just all sort of atmosphere stuff, and
yep,
then suddenly, boom, 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 like three people are dead in the space of what, 10 minutes?
in 10, 15 minutes. Yep. And so we saw Franklin get butchered in the wheelchair, but we really didn't see much. Compared to today's CGI standards, this was tame. This was, you heard the chainsaw, you kind of saw it, you saw Leatherface. Um, there was the production crew spitting blood, literally spitting blood out of their mouth, but we didn't see any carnage. And so it's implied that this old guy, let's see if they give him a name, Drayton Sawyer. Um, so it's implied that he is a member of the family, though I don't think there's any direct mention of who he is. He was supposed to be like implied that he's one of the brothers, but I don't know that it's ever directly referenced. Yes, Johnny Depp. Caroline Williams is in part two. She looks so energetic. Yes, in Search of Darkness. That was a fun interview. It was a joy to watch her talk about that role. Yeah, Edward the Black Prince, maybe an uncle. I think it's kind of implied he could be an uncle, dad, what? But I guess he was supposed to be written as a brother. And so here we have our hitchhiker, who was the one that was desecrating the graves. I think that his whole role in this is he's the grave robber.
Yeah, and this is a I'm very angry with you because this sort of thing might draw attention to us. Because all the people going missing when they drive
Yeah,
through town, no one's going to notice that.
exactly. No one's going to investigate it.
Well,
Well, it makes you
they
wonder how many
kind
people
of
have
get
died.
around that in the Michael Bay remake by having Arlie Ermy as the local sheriff, who turns out to be part of the extended family,
There you
which
go.
which is a pretty good explanation for why the police follow up to all those missing persons reports. Is a little half-hearted.
Well, at least they tried as a plot point to explain why there doesn't seem to be an investigation. But with enough people missing within a short perimeter of, or what, like within a specific area, you're gonna get noticed. So okay, so we have a big family reunion. They're all together,
I think it's
and we
it's
have less than 20 minutes left of the movie, so it's gonna
it's,
it's
it's a
gonna move.
part of the thing here. Just with a total absence of law and order is basically the implication that outside of cities, the United States is a frontier backwater, effectively. It's all dangerous. You don't have law and order.
And in a sense, that is true, especially when you live out in the middle of nowhere, which I used to for the past 12 years. I did till I moved to like another small town closer to civilization. Everybody was kind of just left alone. Nobody kind of butted into your business. And there was a sense that just people took care of what they needed to take care of and weren't bothered.
He needs to take care of that man who ruined the door.
Exactly. Yeah. There is Miss Swift. Yes, posted a GIF. Don't panic.
And
And
then
he's got.
and
There's a
and then
panic here.
and then you basically get a version of this family, don't you, in that episode of The X-Files, Home, the one that I don't think they ever dared repeat in America after its first network airing.
That yes, I think they have. At least I've seen it a couple times. That's where Dana Scully gets
I might have
brought
shown up
in.
in syndication. I don't think it's ever been that when the network was still repeating.
Oh, gotcha. Yes, because I believe in this in syndications or like video release. Oh yes, I've seen that episode numerous times. It's creepy
It's very like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but
without the chainsaws.
with a pair of very good-looking young FBI agents on the case.
Exactly. And I seem to recall that the gentlemen in this little town, they all had hats, right? Did they all have big hats? Am I
No, I think that's
remembering?
a different one.
Is that a different episode? Okay.
That might have been the one with the Amish people who were really aliens. No,
That's the one I'm thinking of.
no, this one had uh, like a backwards brutality family who were all inbred and go out and do kidnapping and murdering and have their mother with no limbs kept under the bed for the purposes of reproduction.
Yep, I remember that episode now. Mulder and Scully investigate the death of a baby born with severe physical defects, and they travel to the small, isolated town of Home, Pennsylvania. Season
Yeah,
4, episode 2.
yes.
Okay, yep.
Which I'm pretty certain that it had such a bad reaction when it was shown on the network in America that
I'm
they
sure
basically
it
went,
did.
"We won't be showing that episode again."
I'm sure it did. Yeah, okay, so we are what is known as the dinner sequence, the dinner scene. It took them, depends on when you ask Toby, whether it took 23, 24, 36, or 40 hours to film. And all the windows are covered. It seems like it's night, but in reality, it was probably during the day that they were filming this. So imagine all of that putrid, the animal parts, all of
Ugh.
that whatever they were using, the caro syrup, blood, whatever it is they were using, everything started to smell. And especially all the actors. And maybe the actors in masks in their costumes that are all smelly and stinky after a day of that. Imagine how pleasant it was on set. Hell if I know, wasn't that the episode that was banned?
Yeah.
Yes. Weren't there a couple banned in the UK?
Uh,
Or just that one?
I don't think any of the episodes of that were banned in the UK. What we did have banned in the UK, I remember, was an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
What?
It was an episode called The High Ground, and it was banned because of one line of dialogue in it, which basically said that the IRA, using their terrorism, had succeeded in liberating Ireland from Britain. And that kind of didn't get, and that kind of, at the time, we had the IRA blowing up things in London and stuff, and that wasn't really a message we wanted to put out.
I can imagine.
So yeah, that was banned. But no, but I seem to remember that Home was because the first three seasons of the X Files were on BBC Two, and they were a big hit. So they put it on the main station, BBC One, and I think the first episode they showed on BBC One was Home, to thoroughly traumatize the largest audience.
Interesting. Yeah. Old Johnny Devick mentioned he thinks he needs to rewatch. I think I'll go rewatch that. You know what? After this, seeing this scene again, I am just never going to think of dinner in the same way again. And I'm thinking at least my family is not as messed up as these guys.
Mm.
He's just the cook who procures the meat. And I guess he's the one that goes shopping. And grandpa over there at the end of the table is just like an 18-year-old kid under that mask. Old Johnny Devick, there is a dinner scene in Resident Evil 7 in first person perspective. Well, I think what we're going to have right here is a lot of Sally screaming. Um, so it's probably a good time now. We have time before the movie ends to mention I will be doing an extra live stream this Saturday, and I think it'll be right about the same time we do this one, 12:30 my time, Pacific Standard Time.
Yep.
Um, and it will be just an open-ended discussion, and I'm going to call it "What Are We Watching?" This is I took a poll on this and kind of got your guys' impression on whether I should do this. Now that my schedule has kind of calmed down a little bit, we're going to do a test run, do it on Saturday. And I don't have any set agenda. There's no set conversation starter. It
But we
will
are
just be
watching Star Trek Strange New Worlds because the third season has just started.
sure. Everybody and anybody who wants to join that live stream, and I'll put up the notification on YouTube, just like I do for these Sunday watch parties. Um, and whatever it is you're watching, whether it be TV, movies, YouTube, whatever it is, or if you just want to come and talk about stuff you want to watch, haven't seen, you want to get someone else's impression on it, we're just going to have an open-ended discussion. I don't know, maybe last an hour, maybe. And I'll just kind of gauge the interest and see who wants to join. Um, and we'll just kind of see how this goes. I don't have a co host set. This is just kind of an impromptu thing. If you would like to join, then reach out to me. Let me know if you're interested in joining as a co host. Otherwise, it will be me. I think I'm going to do it in my office, as rough as it might be. And we're just going to have a conversation. So there you go. We'll see how this goes.
She's still screaming.
She's still screaming.
It's not a. I'd be fascinated to see the script for this, to see how much it describes things, because you do kind of get scripts for like action movies and stuff when it'll just say like there's a really big car chase or there's a fight, go and do something exciting with this.
Yeah, and
Oh, Miss
the
Swift
script
is
direction.
mentioning that. Oh, but
Yeah,
Miss Swift
script
is
direction was
mentioning the
fine.
Supernatural season one episode The Benders and the Torchwood episode Countryside. Now, I have to point out that I'm pretty certain that the Torchwood episode Countryside was plagiarized wholesale from that episode of Supernatural because they aired under a year apart, and that episode of Torchwood was beat for beat exactly the same as the Supernatural episode, right down to the final
Interesting.
revelation of who the killer was and what their motivation. Obviously, the
Interesting. And I
Supernatural
haven't
one
seen
was better
any of them.
because it had Sam and Dee.
Very interesting. And Calbot mentions Blair Witch versus Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which had more screaming at the end.
I think this has more screaming, that had more whimpering.
Yep.
But yeah, it just, as I
Sally
say,
is just
it just,
continuously.
I just wondering whether like, the script for this just kind of has like, screaming and horror. Do something
Mhm.
interesting with it, Toby, or whether they put in lots of sort of stage directions about what's going on.
I don't think. Oh, hell if I know. Nice window jump. Fun fact: they would not let her jump through the window. Absolutely not. And she was up for it, but they said no. We're not going to have you jump through the window. So she jumped instead of the first floor. She jumped from about a 6 to 8 foot high, and she took a fall, and she really did injure her foot there. That would have been more real had she been able to jump through the glass. Yep, here we go. Now that's pretty real.
Ooh.
Uh, so
Oh,
Mr.
I
Fur,
always, I love the shot of the dummy going under the truck wheels.
exactly.
That gives me the
Um,
same the same bits of pleasure that I get in like any James Bond film or something when someone's chucked out of an aeroplane and they turn into a little spinning loose-limbed dummy on the way down.
yeah.
I always like that.
Okay, so over in Discord, Mr. Furzel had mentioned, I'm entranced by this poor girl's plight. The Scorpio in me wishes I was there to
But
teach these monsters what terror really is.
if someone was chainsawing the passenger door of my lorry, the last thing I'd do is get out of the other side and confront him with a spanner or a wrench. I'd possibly stay in the truck and start the engine and drive away.
You think, yep, you're safer in the truck, but for
I,
some
I,
reason,
I
well,
just love how
it's
impractical
just a
the
plot point.
chainsaw is as a weapon.
Yeah, it's well, as they mentioned in Search of Darkness, it's the only weapon. I think it was Joe Bob Briggs that said all you got to do is throw something into the chainsaw and it renders it useless. Um,
No, you can duel people with them. I've seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
yep. Okay. So Sally makes a getaway and she's laughing hysterically. Um, that laugh was impromptu. And it was because after filming, they called her and said, "Look, we didn't get the shot. We need you to come back and do it again."
Yeah,
And she's
Calvert,
like,
it
"You're
might have
effing kidding me."
it might have been the driver's door, but it was still resisting the chainsaw quite well. So I would have turned the ignition key and driven away.
Driven away. That's all I had to do. And Eric here asked, "What happens to the truck driver?" We don't see.
Oh, he was last seen waddling down the road at moderate speed.
Yes, so Calbot, here we go. The characters are victim number one is Kirk, victim number two is Pam, victim three is Jerry, victim four is Franklin, and Sally is the final girl. Calbot says the truck driver is driving the pickup.
No, he wasn't. There was
No,
someone
that's what you find
driving
out.
the pickup was driven by the person driving the pickup. She
Yeah.
jumped in the back. The big
Okay.
fat truck driver was waddling down the street as fast as he could, away from the limping man with the chainsaw.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe he is still walking to this day. Wouldn't that be this lore horror movie? He's still walking the back roads to this day.
Well,
Yeah,
certainly I wouldn't be hurrying back to my truck until I was sure that it didn't have a man with a chainsaw lurking nearby.
no. I certainly wouldn't be running from a guy with a chainsaw. Yeah, I'd be in the truck. Okay, so there we go. And you know what? That officially ends our summer season of franchise classics. Um, we have one more week in July. And okay, so next week, I have chosen for a bit of levity um, the 1996 classic Mars Attacks. All
Yes,
star cast.
Brosnan.
What?
Pierce Brosnan.
This is
Tom
the
Jones.
epitome of all star casts. Okay. We have Tom Jones, Annette Bening, Pierce Brosnan.
Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson.
You name it. You name it. They're in it.
It's it's
It
the,
is a
it's the
riot.
film I was convinced Dom was watching when the rest of us were watching Independence Day.
That could very well have been. They came out just about the same time, didn't they?
Yes.
1996.
Do not run away. We are your friends.
Exactly. Um, so, yes. So it should be readily available in your area. Old Johnny Devick, I had the DVD years back but can't find it. Well, if you can find it, great. If
I,
not, it should be on all the streaming services.
I think I even have the book of Topps trading cards somewhere.
Do you really? Well, if you do, let's break it out and we'll do this again next week. Um, okay. So either tonight or tomorrow morning, I'll be posting for the live stream on Saturday. Um, and I'll also get next week's Sunday watch party posted as well. And I'd love to see you all on Saturday if you can make it. Um, so we are in for a treat next week. And so next week, I'll then, as an aside, action packed August. Next week, I'll give you those movies. There's one of them I just want to check that we haven't already done. Um, yeah. So, any last thoughts? Anybody want to shout out anything about anything in particular before we wrap this up? So, James, what'd you think of today's watch party?
I think it's not necessarily the easiest film to watch. I think people say it's very tame compared to today. It is in the sense that you don't see blood and guts going everywhere, but it's all implied, and pretty much every frame of the film is suggesting there's something horrible and sick and wrong going on. So it's unsettling as
Yeah.
well as horrific.
Totally agree. And sometimes the most terror filled, horrific movies, it's not about what you see, it's about what you don't see. And sometimes less is more, and sometimes more is more. But in this case, less is more. And I think it made it even more horrific by what we didn't see. Um, all right. Well, if anybody has any last thoughts, um, Miss Swift says disturbing mostly by suggestion as well as some of the behind the scenes knowledge. Exactly. Um, oh, okay. So Anzi over there in Discord, is the movie over? Yes, it is. Here's what happened to the truck driver after TMC's ending, sadly. Okay, so over in Discord, Anzi posted a link for YouTube. Um, so that's worth checking out. Thank you, Anzi, for that. Oh, thank you, James, for posting Tom Jones for that for next week. A little bit of what's to come. Um, and old Johnny Devick over there on YouTube says, I don't miss gore. The setting was horrid, so light it for what it is. Yeah, very good. Very good. Um, oh, Mr. Fergel says that video is unavailable.
Oh, it's available to me in the UK, so it
Oh,
might be one of these things where they've got it blocked in certain geographic areas or something.
okay. Well, I'll see if I can find it. And if I can find it, I'll either post it on Discord or we'll talk about it next week. We'll see what I can find. Yes. So let's see. There's a comment. Oh, thank you. Helafino says it's not unusual to enjoy these watch parties. Very good. We're gonna get so many Tom Jones references. Gotta love it. You guys are in for a treat next week, and it has been my pleasure to to be with you today. As always, um, I love coming here every Sunday, showing you guys a movie, talking about it. Hope to see you Saturday. Thank you for joining me, James, and we'll see you all next week. Bye for now.
Goodbye. Be
Be good to
nice, but
yourself.
not that nice.
Exactly. That's very good. Be nice, but not that nice. All right. We'll see you all later.